One great way to make your self-running presentations more visually interesting is to use transition effects when moving from one slide to the next. And that's what we're going to apply to our leaf and mortar presentation here. You can open up Leaf and Mortar 0204 if you're catching up. We're on slide 1, and we're going to go up to transitions up here on the ribbon. Give it a click. You're going to see a number of transitions here. When you click the drop down, for example, at the top, some subtle ones. Then you'll see some more exciting options. And then you'll see some dynamic content options down below. Now, if you really want to see what these look like, you need to select them. Let's say, for example, we wanted to use a subtle transition for most of the slides and add some pizzazz to a couple here and there. That way, we create the visual interest, but we're not too distracting at the same time. So from the subtle group, let's just use the fade option here. We'll click fade, and you'll see it happen right there in front of you, what that looks like on the first slide. What we want to do, though, is apply this to every slide for consistency and then make some changes after the fact. So over here to the right, you'll notice that we can apply to all. Give that a click. And now every one of these slides has a transition effect applied to it. We can tell by the little star that shows up in the left-hand side of each of these thumbnails, just under the number. Notice over here we have some timing options as well. By default, the duration set to 0.7 seconds. That's how long it takes to fade. And we can adjust that to speed it up. We can drop the time using the down arrow, for example. I'm going to go to half a second. And you'll notice that it's automatically advancing on mouse click. Well, that's not what we want until we get to the slides that have buttons. We want it to automatically advance. And this is where we set up some timings. Now we're going to talk more about rehearsing timings later, but we just want to deselect on mouse click to start. And let's just choose a default time for all of these slides. You can see it's set to 0. Let's just bump it up for the sake of testing this out to 2 seconds. There we go. And again, we'll click apply to all to apply these settings to every one of the slides. Now what we want to do for the first 2 slides is use a special effect that's going to morph the first slide into the second slide. Remember, we move these items over and change them to links from one slide to the next. You can see what that looks like. Well, we're going to morph into slide 2. So let's go to the morph option. Now it should appear on your ribbon. If you don't see it, just click the drop down. It is in the subtle group. And clicking morph, you can see it's going to move things on the previous slide to their new locations on the current slide. That means we need to get to slide 2 before we apply this. So let's go to slide 2, click morph. And you can see what happens. That's a nice little preview. Takes everything from the previous slide and morphs it into the next slide. So it doesn't even look like it's changing slides. It looks like it's the same slide and something's happening on that slide. You'll notice up here the duration set to 2 seconds, still applied, and that's a good little effect. Now if we really want to test this out, we'll go to the slideshow. Let's go to slide 1. Go down to the very bottom here, and clicking the slideshow button here will start things from the beginning. So there's our music in the background. There's the morph. And there it is going from one slide to the next using our default timings, which we're going to adjust later on when we rehearse timings. There's our buttons down below, and of course it goes right past those because of those slide timings we've applied to every slide. Press the escape button on your keyboard to leave the slideshow and return back to editing mode here in PowerPoint. Now if you happen to be on the video like I was, pressing escape stops the video. Pressing escape again takes you out of presentation mode and back into editing mode here. So we've added the special effects of the transition from one slide to the next. Most of our slides are simply going to fade out and fade in, but we did use that morph effect on the first 2 slides. We could, if we wanted to, go to other slides and change up the transitions, but you need to be careful of not distracting your viewers while adding some visual interest with transitions.